Words cannot capture how excited we are to welcome Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala on ET Now. This is one interview millions of investors, they always look forward to understand Mr. Jhunjhunwala's views on market, economy and life. And today there is a zing in my voice because I'm meeting him almost after 1 year. So there is definitely a different warmth in his interview. Some like to call him optimistic, but he fondly loves to be known as Bhaiya. Bhaiya.
Dudwala Bhaiya.
So nice to meet you.
Thank you for your kind words. I hope I can live up to them.
I'm going to not start with markets today. I'm going to start with something you discussed and you flagged off exactly 6 months ago, that I have a very different view of India. You may agree to disagree, but I think this decade belongs to India both in terms of growth and in terms of ideation. Looks like things are falling into place, aren't they?
Hopefully so. The early indicators are very, very positive. And I feel that, see, we Indians feel very like to self-depreciate ourselves. That America has got a lot of cases and we have less cases. The common contention is our figures are fudged. But it is 27 state governments are giving the figures, not the central government. I mean, you mean to say all the 27 states have come together and fudging the figures. So we have no self-faith. And Nikun, when I look at societies, what has made societies is skills and democracy. And I believe Indians, even at the cost of among the most skilled people in the world. And the change that we have seen in the last 8-10 years is now really coming out. And with the further promise of reform the government is having, and the firmness of which is talking about it, I think there's no question that this is going to be India's decade and maybe India's manifold decades. I think also I feel, that after the recent announcement of disinvestment or policies which some would say is liberalizing the economy, people talk of socialism and capitalism. Nikunj, I talk of realism. And the realism is that the more you open the economy, right, the more prosperous we get. When Mr. Agarwal bought Hindustan Zinc, I think the profits were not even 200 crores. Today the profit is 7,000 crores. So I see no reason why. I told NRIs, in a meeting with a group of NRIs, that after all their genes are Indian, their skills are Indian. What is it that has made them, what has America given them? America has given them a platform. In India we are going to have that platform now. So I'm very excited, very hopeful. And I think we are also going to have growth with social justice. We abolished the kerosene subsidy. Most households in India to have LPG, right? We have electrified most villages in India. This Nal Ka Jal program, you know what it means? I have a house in Lonavala. I have a boring well there. And I have a pipeline to my house. And I have found that water is fit enough to drink. That is Nal Ka Jal. So what it means, 40% of diseases in India are waterborne. Our infant mortality rate can substantially come down if there is clean water. I repeat it again and again, but I don't find any kind of excitement amongst us that we Indians, regardless of class and wealth, we have access to clean water. And this is my dream. If I earn a few crores more, it's not going to make a difference to me. But with every Indian, he has water. I mean, what a difference it's going to make to this country. And I am not, I'm not any politician, and I'm not saying anything, all this to get any votes. So therefore, I feel hopeful, happy, and elated that India is also going to get there now.
There seems to be a distinct change in the government policy. Budget was very growth dominated, very transparent, Atmanirbhar program, the way the government is now opening up the sectors right now. Do you think there is a very distinct shift in the government policy making?
Is there any doubt?
Which is one policy you are excited about?
Absolutely. And I think every Indian should be excited about. See, the only way to eliminate poverty in this world, in India today, is growth, or anywhere in the world. People think the poor have not benefited. Sir, my help at home now has got an identity. Why? Because he has an Aadhaar card. I could get a passport for him. He lives with me. 11 months he works for me. 1 month he goes to his children. 10 years earlier, he could not even talk to his children. Today, every day he has video calls with them. So, see, the quality of life has also improved for the people who are underprivileged. So, I think I'm very happy. And I personally feel we are going to have growth with social justice. And the efficiency and the constant efficiency that the government is bringing in the disbursement of food grain or electricity subsidy, I mean, I think unbelievable. And I think once these electricity reforms go through, as proposed by the government, I think you don't know what a mind-boggling change that will be, and what a kicker to the economy it will be.
Now, the COVID crisis is unfortunate. People have lost lives. But do you think when we will look back and analyze the impact of that on the economy, on the business, this in a sense has changed things radically because of the COVID crisis, the government introduced Atmanirbhar program, PLI schemes. They are now able to spend and not caring about
I don't agree that it has been introduced because of COVID. See, Modi ji is a very careful man, right? So this was going to come COVID or no COVID. And you know, from the last 5 years, I described Mr. Modi as a distilled socialist. So people ask, who's a distilled socialist? A distilled socialist, a socialist wants a larger part of the cake for everybody. The distilled socialist also wants that, but first you have to increase the size of the cake. So, you know, Mr. Modi realizes that without economic reform, we cannot increase the size of the cake at the pace at which it is possible and should be done. So I have no doubt that it will be implemented, and it would have come in spite of the COVID.
The push towards disinvestment, government is saying that we only want to be in the business of strategic sectors. Are you getting a sense that this time if the disinvestment is conducted, it could create many Hindustan Zincs and many Marutis?
Absolutely, there is no question about it. And this is not disinvestment, sir, this is privatization. Right?
Strategic sale.
So, I mean, there's no question there is scope for a lot of efficiencies in each of the public sector. And I don't blame the public sector employees or the public sector, because see, everybody wants to work with an organization, for an organization which has pride, which is well known, which is well looked upon. Now, for whatever reasons, you know, there are a lot of problems in the public sector. So you are just not able to transmit a sense of belonging and pride to the employees, for which reason they are not able to give their best, which is one of the reasons. So I think it's why, Nikon, you may call me a fool, you may call me anything. I may not live to see it, but I can tell you one thing. India will overtake China in the next 25 years.
Do you see, because every 10, 15 years we say that the change order happens in the world. It was Japan, then came to America, came to China. It was dominated by America last 10 years. This is going to be that year when we will surprise everybody. This decade is going to be the decade we will surprise everybody.
Not this decade, many decades. And now it's been recognized worldwide. Also, see, you got to see different factors. A lot of the countries are all export-oriented. Maybe Japan, maybe Korea. See, export-led growth can last for a time. It can come with speed. But first, to sustain it over a period of time is not easy. Not that's impossible. Countries which grow on their home consumption have got a much safer way to lasting growth.
Markets have made a comeback and earnings have made a comeback. Demand has also made a comeback. What has surprised you more, the market comeback or the demand comeback?
Well, the market comeback would not have been possible without the demand comeback. So I would think, see, the market is an ingredient of so many factors, right? And those factors have all come together. And the biggest factor I feel is the life market there is so much disbelief today. And as long as there is disbelief, you know, markets will keep going up.
So can I quote your favorite line once again, that bull markets are born on pessimism, they grow on skepticism, they mature on optimism and die on euphoria.
I don't think these are my words, I think these are the
John Templeton.
John Templeton. But what he's saying is absolutely right.
So if I have to, let's say, chart in a very simple term for our viewers, if the market or if this bull market is a journey from Churchgate to Borivali, where do you think this bull market has reached?
I would say Churni Road.
So it's a long, long way to go.
Yeah.
Could this decade be a decade where the kind of gains what we saw in America last decade, which is that incrementally it turned out to be a 10, 11-year-old bull market. Do you see potential of that kind of enraging bull market?
I think America has a bull market from 1981. What has happened is only corrections, not bull and bear markets. Right? So I see in India today you have the lowest rate of corporate profits to GDP. You have a very, very low exposure to equity. You have the institutions to channelize equity investment. Plus, you have a phase where the Indian economy is going to grow, according to me, double digit for many, many lots of time to come. So therefore, I don't see why we could have severe corrections within the bull markets. But we are not going to have a reversal. I think bull market is going to last for a good period of time.
You fondly always share with us that market price is a function of PE into EPS.
Yeah.
Do you think much of the PE expansion for Indian markets has happened and now it's EPS?
I would say I won't say it happened for the market. It has happened for the large caps. And for the large caps favored by the FIs, it has surely happened. Right? The valuation parameters. But I think there is a large part of the market where there is a lot of scope both for earnings growth and for EPS expansion. And I think that's where the greatest returns will come.
But to talk about pockets where the PE expansion cannot happen, is it obvious names like consumer staples, consumer durables?
Yeah, I would think that companies are valued at over 50 to 60, 70 times earnings. Over 50 times earnings, I think maybe if temporarily it could expand, but even if I look at the next 10 years, I don't see multiples of more than 50 or, on a sustainable basis, on an average basis. The P multiple go to 70, it will come to 40. But I know on average, for any stock to be valued at greater than 50 times earnings is not easy for prolonged decades and prolonged periods of time.
I'm going to come back to sectors, but I'm going to pause and request you to smile because my next question will bring smile on your face. I can guarantee that. In 2018, when we interacted on a different forum, your words were, the best thing that has happened to the Tata Group is that N. Chandra has become the chairman. And after that, what a comeback it's been in all the Tata Group of companies. What is the way forward for Tata Group and Tata Group of companies now?
I think we are still underestimating the kind of profitability and return to shareholders the Tata Group is going to give under Mr. Chandra's leadership. He's an exemplary thinker, understander of technology, temperament, governance, humility. So I think, the house of Tatas is blessed by God. In every company other than Tata, TCS, they have less than 50% shareholding. In TCS, they are 70%. So I'm very, very bullish, and the Tata Group today is a very, very large component of my portfolio, and I hope to keep it that way.
Is it a coincidence?
It's a coincidence. I buy shares of companies, I don't buy shares of groups. But ever since Mr. Chandra took over and ever since I understood him and what he's trying to do, I got extremely, extremely bullish. And I think it is, now it's very, at the first stage is always uncertain. Now that we are past that stage, we are going to catch speed.
So far, what Chandra has managed to do is that he's changed the capital allocation. He's done the restructuring. The hard work is done. Tata Consumer or Tata Communication, hard work is done. Do you think in this decade there could be an incremental change in the way how Tatas are doing
business?
But
what he has changed will last for years. He has brought about consumer centricity. He has brought up emphasis on cash flows. He looks at cash flows, not EBITDAs and profits, right? Also, his knowledge of technology has enabled him, to impute that technology and technology thought into each company. There is idea of synchronization. So there is so much of things. He's a measured risk taker also. There's boldness. There is commitment. He had to pay 38,000 crores for Tata Communication. He never blinked. So I can't. What makes a chemistry of a person consists of so many factors. And when there are lots of good factors that come together, then is when the real... And I think I have the deepest personal respect for him and for what he has done for the Tata Group. He has helped me make a rich man, for which I will ever remain thankful.
Which are the three Tata Group companies or businesses which you think are not on verge of incremental change, but in this decade, I'm not talking about this year, next year, but in this decade are on the verge of transformational changes?
I mean, the Tata Consumer Products is changed. Tata Motors is changing. Right? I think the most surprising upsides in the Tata Group now, according to me, I can be wrong, will come in Tata Motors. That's my opinion. And I'm a shareholder, I must make a SEBI disclosure. And there is going to be change in everything, in approach, in volumes. His idea of let us do something which will have size, otherwise let's not do it. So, I mean, I think the change will be throughout the Tata Group.
Why are you not bullish, but extremely bullish on metals?
Well, because I think the commodity cycle has turned and the valuations of some of the metal stocks is a joke. I mean, look at cement and steel. Shree Cement is 40 times earnings. And Tisco is expensive at 6 times earnings. This is Tisco, this is not Prakash Steel. And I think there is going to be a very big upsurge in the steel cycle and in other commodity cycles. That's why I'm so bullish, and they're ridiculously valued.
The definition of a commodity bull and a bear market is that when there is a bull in market in the commodity producers make money. When there is a bear market in the commodity consumers, they make money. What could be the change of a big surge?
No, I don't agree with you, because see, as societies are getting more service oriented, the component of metals in daily consumption is coming down. The cost. In America, if you drink a coffee of $3, the coffee in it is 3 cents. So I don't think that consumers are going to lose if commodity prices go up. And whether whoever loses or wins, it's a natural product of economics that if you do not get, if the returns are lower than cost of capital, then no fresh capacities will come up. And as more and more mankind develops, the usage and requirement of commodities just goes up.
There are two critics or naysayers in the market. One, people who belong to the island called Inflanistan.
Pardon?
There are two naysayers in the market. One, those who are worried about inflation, and second, who are worried about valuations. Let's address both. How realistic should one be about a fear of inflation coming back?
Well, I think for a country like India, 4 to 6% inflation is healthy and good. And I don't see inflation beyond that point in India.
Even globally?
See, globally, the world is a mystery. I asked Mr. Raghuram Rajan also. You know, Japan has done the biggest money printing in the world. But inflation just doesn't come there.
Why is that happening?
Nobody has an answer. One is because, according to me, efficiency is coming. Second thing is because when the number of consumers don't go up, it's demographically linked. Right? That is the biggest mystery of the world. I think P's in America, if the 10-year is to deal at, trade at 2%, then a 50p in America is justified. So therefore, it is very difficult to predict why, to know. Even I asked Mr. Rajan, he said he also can't understand it. So, right? Also, so therefore, see, you worry about inflation. We will get a 6-month notice. We'll get a 3-month notice, you act then. But the fact is that in Japan has been the biggest money printer of the world by far. But there is no sign of inflation there.
Are you not worried about the spike which has happened in crude? Suddenly $60 plus could change dynamics for us.
See, part of it is because of temporary reasons, because of the cold in America, these being the winter. And at some price, the oil consumption will come, the oil production will come back. It's an artificially suppressed price. See, I see commodity oil prices between $60 and $70. I don't see it beyond that.
So your bull market thesis will not get punctured even if oil stays in and around 60. You're comfortable if oil stays here in your...
Even at 70. What's the problem?
You always said that bull markets, they never die of age. They only die when the central bank does something. Is that the first indicator which we should look at? It's not going to be P multiple
or
something
something else. No, bull markets die in 2 reasons. When the upswing in corporate profits ends.
Okay.
And there is extreme participation by people. Even if profits spike very badly and don't repeat themselves, if there is no participation by the public or there is no overcommitment, then markets don't end easily. So there has to be a combination of expectations of profitability growth, right, and of profitable growth being lesser than what is expected, combined with an extreme belief and commitment in the market. And then even if they are, just as people today just looking for, bearishness, when it reaches a stage, people will look just for bullishness. So I think that's the point at which, markets will, a bull market reverses into bear market.
What is your view on internet companies? And the reason I'm asking you this, sir, is because a lot of internet companies in India will go public in next 12 to 18 months. There could be Nykaa, there could be Policy Bazaar, one of your investing companies, Nazara, could go public. What's your view there?
See, my thesis in life is important what I buy. It's more important what valuation I buy. So I would not like to pay much money for companies who have perceived large markets and good positioning in that market, but no cash flows or very little cash flows. So you're discounting a large part of the future into the present. Like you would think of Uber after its publication, it never went up. So I'm not personally a very favored investor of internet companies. But people have made money, good luck to them.
What about IT services? It's been a reboot for a TCS and Infosys, the kind of business they tell us they're getting after COVID. The relevance, the importance has only gone higher. Do you think Indian IT companies deserve to trade a higher P multiples now?
Why not? And who am I to decide the multiples? Right? But I can tell you one thing, that strategically, the value of the Indian IT industry to India and the world is invaluable. Because I don't see any nation in the world being able to compete with Indian IT services. I know this is going to be in time to come, maybe 6 years, it's going to be $500 billion. If we grow from this base, if we grow at 12%, we'll add $25 to $30 billion exports a year. $20 billion of that will come back to India and value added. So, the Indian IT industry is going to be the world leader for long time to come.
And do you see a 10% growth for a long time?
Well, growth could be 8, but growth could be 12, growth could be 15, but there's going to be growth.
We spoke about PSU as PSU stocks, and you said, look, I find them cheap, but I'm not so sure about the government disinvestment policy. Sometimes they were doing ETFs, sometimes they were, doing all kind of nuts and bolt adjustments like HPCL and ONGC. Now that PSU stocks have made a comeback, are they still cheap?
They are. The only thing is that I decide I will invest in them only when the government actually does something. Now the government has reformed its disinvestment program into privatization program, and I'm quite sure the government will now sell its jewels very, very smartly. But Nikunj, I also have limited capital. And before this could happen, I was fully committed and I had the highest leverage of my life and still have it. So, and I'm a person who doesn't easily buy, who doesn't easily sell. So I'm actually so highly committed today that unfortunately I have no investment in the public sector except State Bank and Canara Bank.
When you say your leverage, I'm assuming that you have more ideas and less capital.
Leverage means that is always there the day I came to the market. If you give me 5,000 crores, I'll do shopping in a week in the market. But question, I mean, the leverage in terms of the borrowings I have done to invest.
If you have leverage in the market, which means that in the short to medium term also you expect the market arrow pointed higher.
Have you any doubt? Trend is my friend. And there is so much disbelief.
Why is there so much of disbelief?
Well, somebody says, I don't believe in God, I don't argue with them.
This is a point you've been flagging off for many years now, maybe more than 2 decades now, that look at India, foreigners own 20 to 23% of India, who trust India, promoters own 55% of Indian stocks, and Indian investors do not own more than 5%. When do you see that will change, sir? Because DIs are selling and FIs are buying. It's not a great feeling to see when such great things are happening, our local people are not participating.
But, if my son doesn't want to study, how can I convince him? Whom will we go to explain? That's their point of view.
One sector where large changes have happened is the entire banking space. Government is talking about privatizing more banks. Big banks have only become big banks. How do you see the dynamics changing for the banks now?
I think, first of all, the improvement in profitability and valuations for the public sector and the smaller banks will be much higher than the favored banks. That is one dynamic which will change. Second, I think is that, see, after all, the excess liquidity in India is only 6-7 lakh crores. And the total loan outstanding is 15 to 20 times 6-7 lakh crores. And if we have to grow 11% next year, I see no way we can grow unless and until credit growth is 15%. So I think over a period of time, anybody who can garner deposits, right, will become very powerful, and he will have the ability to lend. And his interest margins will go down. Also, these public sector banks, and see, where there is peak efficiency, for efficiency to come is difficult. But these banks' cost to income ratios, margins are at the lowest. So I think if I was an investor, I would choose the PSU banks and the smaller private sector banks.
But what could be the relevance of these banks in today's technology-dominated era?
Every bank has the technology. You go to Federal Bank, you can open an account here, sitting in your office. I don't think the smaller private sector banks are less technology efficient than any of the modern banks. And State Bank is better than most.
Of course, the UNO app, what they've developed is absolutely world-class. Pharma. Again, it's going to bring a big smile on your face. Let's capture that smile also. For the longest time, India has been the generic capital of the world. But now we've become the vaccine capital of the world. Serious amount of re-rating has happened for the pharma sector. Somehow markets are not recognizing that.
Well, they have gone up, they have gained. They have not lost so much also. No? Because basically it's a defensive industry. Right? Within the pharma sector, there was a lot of churning. I think IT and pharma, India is going to be, already is and going to be the pharma capital of the world. And it's not easy to build these knowledge industries. So I'm bullish on both.
But I'm just trying to understand the distinction here, the distinction in terms of where pharma was, let's say 5-7 years ago versus where it is right now. Have the dynamics changed, US FDA problems, all the pricing issues, you think they're behind us?
Absolutely, the dynamics have changed, absolutely.
Let me draw your attention to what we've discussed on this forum. And you've said that I was bullish in the market in April and May. And it's not for the first time Rakesh Jhunjhunwala has called the market bottom right. You've called the market bottom right in 9/11, in 2013, 2014. But when you look back and you talk about this COVID bottom, is this the best call of your career? I'm not talking about the size, I'm talking about the intellect part.
Nikunj, I hope the best is still to come. But God's grace, I made a good call, I must admit that, with all modesty.
How has this entire work at home experience changed you as a person?
I don't like it. Because, I want to separate my personal life and my work life. Right? And also for the other people in the home, it's an intuition. Rekha knows that when I'm not home, she's always the queen, whether I'm there or not, but when I'm not there, she's also the king. And I also would like to be in a different, I don't like the work from home concept. Also in my new house, I'm making an office whose size is bigger than my present office. But I am going to come to this office every day.
Did you actually go to Golden Dragon? Because that's what you told me last time.
Yeah, I went so many times.
I'm just going to ask you a few more questions and then we'll not extend our appointment. If I look around with my friends, with my relatives, everyone is excited to use the low interest rates to buy a house. Is there a big revival coming in the real estate sector and stocks?
You have any doubt?
I'm asking you for information.
I think the real estate sector has bottomed.
Will real estate and equity compete for this decade?
There's a lot of money available for everything in India. So no question of competition, they'll complement each other.
But for an average investor, do you expect that in this decade, it's entirely, there is a strong, not probability, but possibility that Nifty can give a double-digit return?
Double-digit return every year for the next 5, 6, 7 years.
5, 6 years. 10, 11% return.
I would be disappointed if in the next 8, 10 years, the Nifty doesn't give a high teen return.
Which means in this decade, Sensex definitely should cross 1 lakh, if I just put maths together.
If high teens returns, it should be much more than 1 lakh. But Nikunj, I am extremely positive on the markets. My perception of India is very bullish. It differs from most Indians. I reserve the right to be wrong, but that's what my feelings are.
How do you think history will remember Elon Musk?
As a true pioneer and entrepreneur.
Do you think Tesla is a bubble or Tesla deserves that kind of a market cap?
See, Mr. Elon Musk has not given the market cap of Tesla. It's the public who has created it. This market cap is not going to last that much, I can tell you. But that does not take away from the entrepreneurial capabilities or performance of Mr. Tesla, or Mr. Musk, right? So the valuation of Tesla is not linked to the entrepreneurial capabilities of.
Rakesh Jhunjhunwala's entire wealth is in India, even though people have options to invest outside India. Is that patriotism or a business decision?
There is no patriotism in that. It's ease. I would like to see. I invest because I enjoy the process. Now I don't know anything about Facebook, and I'm not going to go and find out. Plus, legitimately, the government of India doesn't allow me to invest more than $1 million a year, or maybe because I have 5 children, $1.25 million. It's not going to make much difference to my balance sheet. So why go where? And I want to go for scale. And second thing is, I think the opportunities in India are so great, right? As good as any in the world, over a period of time. So when the food at home is so good, why think of eating out?
If you could short Bitcoin, will you short Bitcoin?
Well, I would short Bitcoin at some point, but not at this point.
Are you bearish on Bitcoin as a people what they're saying that it could be alternative currency, or you don't like blockchain as a technology?
No, it's not question of blockchain as a technology or a product. My sheer arguments are two. They can never replace currencies. But currencies can't fluctuate 10% a day in value, 5-10%. Second thing is the first sovereign right of a country is to issue currency. Any currency, do you think they will give up that right? And third thing is, can a currency be something which anybody can create? So for, I think, all these three reasons, I am not interested in Bitcoin.
Normally people start planning retirements at 60. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala has taken his biggest leverage bet after he turned 60. That's what you just shared with us. So no retirement plan, sir?
Well, employees retire at 60, not businessmen here.
Do you?
I am going to work until the last day of my life. You know what I pray to God? God, whenever you're going to take me, let me get up in the morning, do my yoga, have a lovely breakfast, come to the office, do some trading, do some investing. In the evening, go have 2 good drinks. Then you can take me.
I'm sure, sir, God will give you a long life and we will wish for a long life.
There's nothing about that. Life, death is a part of life. I'm not afraid of it. I don't know when it will come. I cannot predict it. I can model it, but I cannot know it. So it is inevitable. What is death? Death is permanent sleep.
You know, my 9-year-old son, sometimes I read him comics and magazines about inspirational people. So if a comic book or if a book on Rakesh Jhunjhunwala's life has to start, how do you think it should start and how do you think it should end?
Well, I haven't thought of all this, but surely that God give others the luck He has given me also.
What are the 3 things you tell Nishtha, Aryaman and Aryavir that they should not do those 3 things?
Same sex, drugs and cigarettes. I don't tell them it's a wish. And I want them to have integrity, education, independence and the power to give. And their mother's nature and my brain.
Also, it's been fascinating.
I don't want to achieve, I want my children to do what they will enjoy in life. I don't think that wealth is the source of happiness. And I have a very different concept of a rich man. I think a rich man is one who feels he has more than he needs, then you're rich. So I don't want my children to be like me. I want them to do what they enjoy in life. And be responsible, be good citizens.
Well, sir, really appreciate your time. So glad you could join us. And we've really covered a range of topics right now. And such a warmth to meet you again after 1 year. I wish you all the luck and best wishes for the day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.